Our next witness is Mr. T.
Yes, sir. Do you want to make the restriction order before the witness is sworn in?
Yes. As I mentioned before we had the break, the next witnesses throughout the rest of the day will be anonymous. Now, what that means is that no one can say anything which would lead to their identity being known outside this room. Each of them will give evidence, so you will see them, but they will not be seen by the nation out there because their face will not be on any live transmission. What they say will be, but not what they look like. So in each case, I will make an order in the usual form. In the case of Mr. T, it reads like this. I order that the name and address of witness W0123, that's Mr. T, to you and me, and any other identifying information such as the witness's image or a description of their appearance cannot be disclosed or published in any form unless express permission is given by me or by the Secretary to the inquiry acting on my behalf. Witness 0123 must be referred to only as Mr. T. This order remains in force for the duration of the inquiry and at all times thereafter unless otherwise ordered, and I may vary or revoke the order by making a further order during the course of the inquiry. On each of the occasions that I've made these orders, I have asked or reminded people to be very careful in taking any photographs in and around the inquiry, that means in and around the conference centre, just in case you inadvertently capture Mr. T, and the same will apply to the other witnesses we are yet to hear today, when you take a snap. So please just take care. The press won't photograph anyone without permission. Please don't do the opposite.
So I should just say before Mr. T is sworn that whilst his testimony will be live streamed on an audio only basis, the live stream will not be functioning this afternoon. That's because of the nature of the evidence that's being given this afternoon is such that it will be unrealistic to expect the witnesses to give their evidence without mentioning names.
Yes.
And so there'll be no live stream, so anyone listening presently or watching presently will not be able to follow this afternoon's proceedings, but their evidence and the audio transmission of it will be uploaded as soon as any appropriate redactions have been made.
Yes. Well, let's have Mr. T.
Mr. T, your full name is known to the inquiry. Please take the book in your raised hand and repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That the evidence I shall give.
That the evidence I shall give.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but
and
the
nothing
truth.
but the truth.
You're a retired police officer, having completed 30 years' service.
Yes.
In 1988, you sustained very serious injuries as a result of a road traffic accident.
That's correct, yes.
What can you tell us about what happened in terms of your treatment?
Well, with regards to my treatment at that time, at the time of the accident, I had multiple fractures, life-threatening. I was taken to the Glasgow Victoria Infirmary after being cut out of my car, and I think it was like emergency surgeries were carried out at that time. Obviously, due to the circumstances, I don't really recall anything of what was going on at that particular time.
You now know you received blood transfusions. You weren't in a position to be asked for your consent because of the nature of your injuries, as I understand it.
That's correct, yes.
And you very candidly said in your statement that had you been asked for your consent, you would have given it because of the seriousness of your condition.
I think in the circumstances that's reasonable, yes.
And we know from a recently provided witness statement from the Scottish National Blood Transfusion Service that their understanding is you received 6 units of red cells and 7 units of fresh frozen plasma or cryoprecipitate on the 6th of April 1988, 2 units of red cells on the 11th of April and 4 units of red cells on the 19th of April.
Yes, I found that out last week.
Now, you recovered from your injuries and you returned to work as a police officer.
Yes.
Some 12 years later, in 2000, you went to see your GP. What
Yeah.
prompted that?
Generally feeling unwell for a number of years, probably fatigue, pains my joints. I would liken it probably a lot of the time to like flu-like symptoms. So this had been on for quite a lengthy period of time, and my wife eventually just said, look, you need to go and see a doctor, because it's a thing I still don't do that often, you know. I won't go and see a doctor just because I'm not feeling that great. So she eventually talked me into going, and I did.
And you saw your GP, and the GP arranged for you to be tested for hepatitis C.
Yeah, that initially did a blood test, and he initially said that he thought it could be I was maybe just anemic. That came back, and I think at that time he said, do you mind if I try another one and test for hepatitis C? And due to the circumstances, I was quite happy with that, because I had obviously no reason to believe that I would be infected.
The test result came back and your GP informed you that you had been infected with hepatitis
Yeah.
C. What can you recall of your reaction?
I think probably just numbness. Because of the occupation, I knew what hepatitis C was roughly, but to be honest, I was probably quite ignorant of the bigger picture with regards to it. But I knew what it was, but didn't really know what it was going to do to me. I think I did ask him, you know, how much time have I got left?
And you've said in your statement that you were in tears when you went home,
Yeah.
extremely emotional, in a
Yeah.
state of turmoil.
Yeah.
And you went on autopilot, as it were, into work,
Yeah, I just went to work that night.
but you spoke to someone at work and actually told one of the few people you ever told at
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
what your diagnosis had been, and they told you to go home.
Yeah, he did.
You had a great fear at that time that you might have infected your wife or children.
Yes, well, you're thinking at the time, when did this happen? Because I obviously didn't know. And it's going through your mind, how did I become infected? Who could I possibly then have infected myself? And all these scenarios are running through your mind. And it's probably it's quite constant in that respect, that you never get that out of your mind about who you have or could have infected.
How much information was your GP able to give you about the condition?
Very little at all. I think his sort of comment in the time was that he said, I believe it works in like 20-year cycles of kind of deterioration. He said, but I don't really know that much more about it. I think, to be fair, you know, at that time in 2000, the sort of general information for GPs was apparently was possibly quite thin on the ground.
Now, your GP did refer you to a consultant, Dr. Fox.
Yes.
What can you recall about your first appointment there and what you were told?
He asked me a lot of questions about, you know, is there any circumstances under which I think I may have become infected? He asked me questions about, you know, was I an intravenous drug user? There was all these kind of questions, trying to maybe establish where or how I'd become infected. And I answered to him that I had no idea, but I did happen to mention the road accident and describe the injuries I had suffered at that time. and where I had been treated. And it was kind of strange because at that time he sort of said, that's what it will be. And he at that time said that due to the injuries I had suffered, he was quite confident that I would have received a blood transfusion at that time.
Now, you were given a leaflet at some stage. We'll just have that up on screen, please, Paul. It's 0123002. And we can see it was how you can prevent the spread of infection to others. If we go over the page, we can see that there's information, some practical tips about how to avoid spreading infection. And then if we go to the last page, please, we can see there's a passing reference to treatment. Medical treatment's available, however, it's not always effective and not everyone will be suitable for treatment. And then it refers to complementary therapies and positive living. You've described that leaflet in your witness statement as somewhat basic.
Yes.
Did you receive much more information from Dr. Fox or anybody else about the nature of the condition and its likely progression or treatment options?
Not really that I remember. I'm pretty positive that I didn't really get much more from them at that time. It was obviously described as a liver disease. It could lead to cirrhosis, etc. But at that time, you're not been medically trained. You're not really sure exactly how that works or how it progresses. So, from the staff themselves, I don't feel that I got much more information than that.
Now, you had to be tested, or you were tested for HIV.
Yeah.
That was negative, but
Yeah.
what was the wait for the test result like?
It's indescribable. It's you're simply just hoping that it's not going to prove positive. But to go through that for weeks at a time is pretty hard, you know. I think with retrospect, I sometimes wonder why I was tested for that, because obviously the response that I got last week from the blood transfusion service indicates that the blood was hepatitis C positive, but it doesn't in any way say that it was HIV positive. So I'm still kind of unsure as to how I got or why I was tested for HIV at the time.
Now, Dr. Fox advised that you should have a liver biopsy.
Yeah.
There was going to be quite a wait for that. How long?
I think it was something like at least 6 months to a year. They were saying it would probably be the better part of a year before you could get one of them arranged.
So you arranged one privately?
Yes, my father offered to pay for me to go to a private hospital and one done.
And the result of that, and that was in 2001, was that at that stage you'd suffered minimal damage to your liver.
That's what the way it was described to me, yes.
And Dr. Fox at that stage thought that you didn't need to embark upon treatment straight away.
No.
And told you that the only available treatment at that stage was not particularly effective.
Yes, that's correct.
You've described in your statement how in the early years after the diagnosis, your great anxiety was that you would not be able to continue working.
Yeah.
And that you would not be able to support your family.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Yes.
And you've described in your statement feeling in a state of high stress and
Mm-hmm.
panic.
Yes.
What had you, whether through your work as a police officer or otherwise, what kind of view had you formed or understood about the nature of hepatitis C prior to your own diagnosis?
Well, I made comment in my statement about, the typical view at that time, probably in general, of police officers was it was a junkie-related illness, a junkie-related disease, if you want. And again, I think I did say in my statement that I was very ignorant of what it was and how people would come to be infected in the environment that I worked in. The normal way that anyone infected was through intravenous drug use.
And you've described your own view as being ill-informed,
Yeah.
but you nonetheless had to listened to colleagues who've used phrases such as those described in your statement, scummy, drug-infected, Hep C-infected junkets and the like, whilst keeping secret the nature of your own diagnosis.
That's correct, yes.
Could we have up on screen, please, Paul, 01230003? This is a letter from September 2002. So this is nearly 2 years after your diagnosis. And it's a letter from Dr. Fox saying that the blood transfusion service have informed me that one of the donated units of blood you received in 1988 has proven in retrospect to be contaminated with hepatitis C, and that this donation may be the source of your infection. Now, you've been critical in your statement of the use of the term "this donation may be the source of your infection."
Yes.
Dr. Fox himself told you he was certain it was the source of your infection.
Yeah, he said he was 100% certain.
And it's right to note that we have a statement from the current medical director of SNBTS, which you've seen in the last few days, Dr. Turner, which contains an apology to you and your family for the fact that you received the infection through a transfusion, and says that the service fully accepts that you were infected as a result of the transfusion.
Yes, that's the one I got last week, yeah.
You've talked in your statement about the stigmatising effect of hepatitis C. You felt it was a dirty disease and you were terrified your children, if people found out, would somehow be branded the children of a disgusting dad, is the way you've put it in your statement. In the period up until your first course of treatment, how physically and mentally did the diagnosis affect you?
I don't think it ever leaves your mind. You're constantly thinking about it. Obviously, with the job I was doing, you have to try and remove that from your mind when you're dealing with the kind of situations that I was dealing with. But when you've got downtime or there's quiet time, it's constantly in your mind. Days off, there wasn't much else went through my mind with regards to thinking, you know, what do I do? What's the long-term prognosis for it? You know, I need to keep working. We've got a house, we've got kids, we need to pay for that. You're just constantly thinking about it, as well as probably the physical effects were probably still the same as well, and I was still tired a lot. As I say, constantly feeling as if you were suffering from like flu-like symptoms. So.
And you've described in your statement how you withdrew socially, very much down to the family unit.
Yeah.
And you would sit alone, think about the diagnosis, and you felt like a dead man walking.
Yeah.
Over the years, there were a couple of occasions when you informed colleagues in the police force about your condition. Once occupational health you informed. What was the reaction you got?
The occupational health sort of, it was actually a chief inspector had said to me at the time, I had said to him that I needed to go for a medical appointment, and he asked me what it was for, and you don't normally get asked that. And I eventually just told him what it was with regards. So he said to me, I think you should refer yourself to occupational health, which I did. Went and saw them and basically spoke to a nurse at our occupational health, and she kind of looked at me with a blank stare and, right, okay. And is there anything, you know, if there's anything we can do for you, get back to us. And that was it. There wasn't any sort of offer of any proactive sort of assistance at all. It was basically just, right, okay, thank you, that's noted.
And there was another occasion where you were going to be posted somewhere that would have made it difficult for you to attend medical appointments.
Well, that was that was more in the last sort of 3 to 4 years of my service, probably between 2012 to 2016, where I was posted quite a significant distance away, and there was really no need for it. I firstly asked a superintendent, told them what the situation was, and that I still had a lot of medical appointments to attend, etc. felt it would be better for me if I could be posted nearer to home, which wouldn't have been a problem because there was certainly vacancies. He said he would get it dealt with straight away, never get back to me, emailed him, he never got back to me. I then was posted to the area that was further away from my home, spoke to the area commander there, and he was ridiculous, the guy. He actually came into my office one day, closed the door behind him, and he was quite belligerent, and said to me he didn't understand what I'd been gibbering about. So he asked me whether I thought this was really necessary.
Was there any point at which you received any kind of supportive or sympathetic response from your employer?
No. When I'd said to him I thought it was, he asked me to put it in writing to him, so I did, by way of an email. What he actually did with it was he opened it, he closed it, he marked it as unread, and then he deleted it.
In terms of your children, you have described in your statement how both the infection and the treatment, which we'll discuss in a moment, how that affected your mood and your ability to communicate with your children.
Yeah.
I think it's right that you didn't tell them for a while.
I didn't tell him until about 3 years ago.
And it was an occasion where you describe you blew up at your son, and then that was the one occasion you've said in your statement when you actually felt suicidal.
Yeah. It was just
what you had become.
Yeah. It was just the anger that I reacted to him, the way I reacted to him, and sort of looking at yourself, reacting in that way.
And it was after that that you decided that you would tell the children?
Yeah, we basically sat them both down and told them.
I wanted to ask you about the treatment that you received for hepatitis C. It was 2005 when you, I think, first had a discussion about embarking upon treatment. And you were told that the treatment, which would be interferon and ribavirin, would have debilitating side effects and that you wouldn't be able to work.
Yeah. I was advised that I wouldn't be able to work and that it was inadvisable to work as well.
In fact, you continued to work throughout that course of treatment.
Yeah.
You'd inject yourself with the treatment at home, with your wife sitting on the stairs to warn you if the children were coming in?
Well, that first course of treatment, I actually had to go into the hospital to get the injections all the time. The injecting myself was actually in the second course. Sorry.
In relation to the first course of treatment, you arranged your shift patterns and your hospital appointments so that you could continue working whilst still having the treatment. And what were the side effects of that treatment, physically and mentally?
I think the tiredness got worse, certainly a lot of pain. I think as far as your mindset was concerned, I've described it, I think the word befuddled sums it up sometimes, that you were, did I do that? I can't remember if I did that, did I, and having to double check things. And again, from the perspective of probably not realising what the effects of the medication could be, it was confusing in that respect. But physically, whilst doing that and continue to work a shift pattern, including night shifts, it would be at the end of a shift pattern, I would sometimes spend the 2 days off in bed, just sore and tired.
And you experience, your statement describes mood swings, panic attacks and anxiety.
Yeah, sleeping was really poor. It was ridiculous situations when you were lying at night with your hand taking your own pulse, and it just was ridiculous. Sometimes off early shifts starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. I would maybe get an hour's sleep before going in for 7 o'clock and starting work.
Now, the hepatitis C showed signs of clearing during that first course of treatment.
That's correct, yes.
Ultimately, that treatment was unsuccessful.
Yes.
What was the impact of learning that the treatment hadn't worked?
It's devastating. I think that anybody that's been through the treatment and it's failed, I'll say exactly the same thing in respect of the fact that you're so hopeful, you're going through it, you get word through it that it's cleared, and then it comes back. I think it was about 6 months after it, I get final confirmation that I had returned, and you feel as if you've been through all that pain for nothing. It's very depressing.
If we have up on screen, please, Paul, 0123004. This is a letter you then received in July of 2007, saying, following your attendance at my clinic this morning, your liver function tests have been phoned back showing a significant deterioration. And then there was a reference to the need for there to be a liver ultrasound scan. What was the effect on you of receiving that letter?
Well, it was just a piece of mail that came in the general post. I opened it up and I was totally and utterly destroyed by it. I think I probably felt as if I was in a trance reading it. I cried. I was in the house myself that day, so you're sitting with this piece of news and you just didn't know what to do with it. It's one of these situations that I have said since that they should certainly not be sending letters with that kind of information out to people that they're opening in their home. They could be alone, they could be with family members when they're doing it, and I have actually said to my present consultant that this is not a good way of doing things.
And you thought that this was terminal?
Yes. Yeah, I think that would be fair, yeah.
You had a liver biopsy.
Yes.
In the October of that year.
Yes.
And that was a very unpleasant experience, as I understand your statement.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I went into the Brownlee Centre at Gartnavel Hospital. I went down to get the biopsy done, bearing in mind I had one previously, so I was assuming it would be as straightforward as that. I went in and I got a local anaesthetic, which was injected in my back, and I believe that's probably into the liver. The doctor then started to insert the probe or whatever it was he was using at the time, and we realised that the anaesthetic hadn't worked. He tried it another couple of times, it still didn't work, and he basically carried it out without the anaesthetic.
Now, 2009, early 2009, you started on a second course of treatment.
Yes.
Again, interferon and ribavirin.
Yes.
And this course lasted for about 12 months?
That's correct, yes.
How did you manage that at work and at home?
Well, that was the time that initially, prior to starting in that course, that they showed me how to inject myself in the stomach at the time. So I was given it was like 4 weeks supply, and I would inject myself either at home or at work, depending on the shift patterns I was on. So again, from a work perspective, trying to find that time to just get a couple of minutes to go and inject myself was quite stressful. At that time I was a supervisor, and you're on call all the time, so to try and get an injection done outside the time that something critical may be happening in the street was always a major concern. In the house, when I was injecting myself within the house, it was awkward from the point of view with having kids around. So I usually did that in the living room, and my wife would basically stand guard and make sure that the kids didn't happen to walk into the living room and while I was doing it.
And what were the physical effects of this second course of treatment?
Again, it went back to exactly the same as the first one, although I felt that the second time the physical effects were worse. And the problem for me at that time was that I actually showed physical effects in respect of my skin drying, round about my face and neck. I'm no medical person, but I would probably describe it as severe psoriasis. And people commenting to me, and are you okay? And just sort of trying to laugh it off and say, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just not feeling that good, you know. So that was sort of consistent for that 12-month period. There was, I think it was probably about half a dozen occasions when I had taken the injections. It was always a Tuesday I took the injections on. And at least half a dozen occasions the following day, a nurse phoned me up and said to me, this week's injection, could you cut that in half? And I remember on a few occasions saying, you know I take it on a Tuesday and you're phoning me on a Wednesday. So there was, I say, about half a dozen occasions where I was phoned up after the fact and told to cut the dosage.
And what about the psychological effects of the second course of treatment?
Again, it's fair to describe it as being depressed. My wife describes, or she describes panic attacks, unable to sleep in the middle of the night. I think psychologically it was very difficult. But I think what keeps you going is the hope that it will clear.
And in February 2010, you were told that the hepatitis C had cleared.
Yes.
But you would need to have ongoing monitoring for the state of your liver until you reach the age of 72.
Yes.
And so you attend every 6 months for scans and tests?
Yes, I go to a specialist at Gartnavel, a liver specialist, and it was him that made the comment about 72, and I'd asked him why, and he said, well, we reckon you've had a decent innings by the time you get to 72, which, to be honest, I thought was quite funny.
But you get terrible anxiety at the time of the scans and tests?
Yeah, I still get that. I think it's... I've actually got one next week. So prior to them, your stress levels probably go up because you're basically going twice a year to find out if it's deteriorated. So sort of every 6 months you get that feeling of anxiety in respect of the possibility of being told it's got a lot worse.
Well, I wanted to ask you about your experience of counselling, psychological support. You did have some form of counselling at one stage.
Yeah.
An HIV counsellor. What happened?
I was initially, this was very early on in my memory, after being diagnosed, and I was asked if I wanted to speak to a counsellor, and I said yes, okay, I would speak to a counsellor, probably from the point of view that I wanted more information. When I went to the hospital, they explained to me they didn't have a hepatitis C counsellor, it was an HIV counsellor. All she talked about was HIV. All she talked about was, I think you might have HIV. I just didn't get it. I think I was stunned. Didn't understand what she was talking about. We were trying to ask questions. She would talk over you. It was dreadful, absolutely dreadful.
You've described it in your statement, in fact, as one of the worst experiences of your life.
Yeah.
You've asked for counselling.
Yeah.
On a number of occasions.
Yeah.
What's the response been?
I've never had any. And
you say in your statement that the most useful person you've spoken to was someone at the British Liver Trust.
Yeah, that was quite early on. I think because of the lack of information, we went online and it can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. You get a lot of really bad stuff online that probably you shouldn't be reading. But I think it was my wife that found the organisation, the British Liver Trust, and we contacted them. If I remember rightly, I think that was a voluntary organisation, a charity. They were excellent. They were really good at giving you more information about prognosis, treatment, etc. And I found them very, very good.
And in terms of your experiences in making applications to the Skipton Fund,
Yeah.
you yourself have not experienced any difficulties with that process. Dr. Fox told you about it and actually filled in the forms for you.
Yeah, I believe he did the first and second. And to be honest, I thought the Skipton Fund were fantastic. Any time I contacted them or any time I asked for information, the first time Dr. Fox had filled in the forms for me, I think it was just a case I signed them and sent them off. And then the second time when they discovered I had cirrhosis, he had again, I believe, my memory of it was he'd filled it in again, and I literally just signed it and sent it off.
And you've described in your statement how in 2013 the Skipton actually contacted you and made you aware of your potential eligibility for a top-up payment.
Yeah, it was literally a phone call out the blue to my mobile, and I literally thought it was just one of the scam callers. And it's when he said, I'm from the Skipton Fund, I then recognised obviously the name and realised that it might not be a scam call. So I spoke to him and he explained what I think it was at that time. He basically said that I may qualify for a further payment.
Now, although the virus cleared as a result of the second course of treatment, what have been the ongoing effects on you of the infection and the treatment you received for it?
I think the ongoing effects are probably psychological in the main. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about it. Physically, I'm probably in a lot better place. I do go to a gym. I'm there. I might not look it, but I'm there 5 or 6 days a week. And my way of dealing with the effects or the long-term effects are to try and stay as fit as I can. So that's basically what I do in that respect. But as I say, I think mentally I'm getting there. But I think it's something that's always going to be there.
And what about the impact on your family?
It's been dreadful. I think from my wife's point of view, she's had to put up with the mood swings, the anger, the frustration. Just not been that much fun to be around. We've had a situation with regards to we've not really had a physical relationship for 19 years.
And that's because of the fear?
The kids, I don't know. It's been dreadful, probably for them not understanding why I've been acting the way I was acting. And that's something that I'll always regret. So that's been hard.
Those are the questions I have for you. Is there anything further you would like to add?
No, I'm fine, thanks. That's fine. Okay.
Thank you. Sir?
Well, I have no questions, but let me thank you very much, Mr. T. It takes courage to give evidence, particularly when you have particular reasons for wishing anonymity, so thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, we'll take an early lunch, and that means we will come back at 1:10. So 1:10.